Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Organize and Complete Your CLD Application. My name is Joe DeGuzman, Senior Certification Coordinator for the CLD program. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to go over some housekeeping notes. Attendees' microphones will be muted for the duration of the session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions box in the heads-up display on the right-hand side of your screen. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function and send a direct message to ILD staff or organizers. We'll take questions at the end of the presentation. With that, let me introduce you to our speakers. First, Rosemarie Allaire, IALD Fellow, MIES, CLD, and Vice Chair of the CLD Commission. Rosemarie started Rosemarie Allaire Lighting Design in 2002 and has continued to creatively produce recognized and award-winning projects. And second, Dawn Hollingsworth, IALD Fellow, LC, CLD. She is the principal of Dark Horse Lightworks, LLC, and has over 35 years experience with diversified expertise in theatrical and architectural lighting design. Ladies, take it away.
Great, thank you, Joe, and good day to everyone listening, attending today. My name is Rosemarie Allaire, and I am a proud certified lighting designer number 15. Dawn Hollingsworth and I are delighted that so many of you have joined us today under these unfortunate and extreme circumstances. We hope you're all staying safe and healthy. And we're delighted and happy that you chose to learn more about the CLD. Thank you for your interest, and we hope your time is well spent with us. And it should be beneficial to you in understanding the CLD and help guide you through the application process. So what is the CLD? Well, it is the only international evidence-based benchmark of performance for architectural lighting designers. And this afternoon, we will cover the objectives today will be why certified, what is the CLD, what is required for the application, and how to organize and complete your application to become a certified lighting designer. I will start with some of the background and history of the CLD, and Dawn will later go online and take us through the application. So why certify? We, as lighting design practitioners, should be able to define our architectural lighting profession, not legislative bodies or public agencies that are not familiar with our profession. It was the IALD that spearheaded this effort in 2010 so that the risk was minimized of outside organizations that were seeking to do so. Through the IALD, a task force was assembled to determine if a credential was feasible, of which 7 IALD members from 3 countries joined to make up the committee, myself included, and after 5 long years, the CLD was created. Who benefits? Well, we all benefit when lighting design professionals are recognized because this raises the awareness of our profession. The CLD is an investment in your career. It will set you apart from your professional competitors. And as we know, our competition is not relegated just to architectural lighting designers. Our clients and the general public will benefit from the established credibility that the CLD credential brings as it builds trust in our profession. We benefit as lighting designers because it builds confidence, it's self-reinforcing, and it's a professional achievement once you are certified. The value of the CLD demonstrates to your clients you have proficiency in developing, guiding, and completing lighting design projects, proving competency. And the definition of competency is the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. So this credential is measured on design competence. It's not design excellence. What is the CLD? It's a global credential. It's the only internationally recognized evidence-based benchmark of performance. Currently, there are 17 countries represented in the CLD, so it's a truly international credential and the only of its kind outside of the medical profession. This certification brings global recognition. It confirms your professional status in the eyes of peers, design team colleagues, clients, and even the general public anywhere in the world. The CLD is a standardized measurement of competency for individuals independently assessed relative to best industry practice principles. What the CLD is not is licensure. It When we were in our task force days, it was determined that licensure is not recommended for lighting designers because it's regulated on a state-by-state basis. So, of course, on an international level, that certainly wouldn't work. And during these current days of our situation we have now, the CLD is online, and it's not an exam. So you can go to it on your own time, your free time that you may have now. There are no study groups required, and there's no specific training because it's portfolio based. It's based on your work, and it's a peer-reviewed submission. There are lighting designers all over the world that are currently reviewers for the CLD. The CLD is a credential. It is not a professional lighting association like the IALD or the IES. And the LC, or Lighting Certified, or the NCQLP, is North America based, which is an exam, and the CLD was never intended to replace the LC. It was, LC are for some people, and CLD is a little bit more design oriented, but the CLD had, during the task force days, some LC representatives that consulted with us to help determine how we could collaborate and move forward with the new credential. Excuse me. So the certification development was developed under the guidance of an experienced psychometric professional, Judith Hale. She is one of the best in the industry and in accordance with credentialing industry best practices. The development of the CLD was extremely inclusive, getting feedback from not only architectural lighting designers, but other design build professionals. Part of the development of the CLD included global surveys, studies, in-depth analysis to confirm that the certification standards and application process effectively measured proficiency in architectural lighting design. Through this process, 7 core competencies called domains of practice were determined and the proficiency required with each domain. So who is eligible? Well, lighting design practitioners with 3 years experience as a lead lighting designer those are the eligibility requirements. The definition of a lead lighting designer is someone that's responsible for creating the lighting design strategy and concepts for the project, providing recommendations through the implementation process, and guiding the outcome of the developed and documented design from concept through construction. As the lead lighting designer, you don't need to necessarily have your hands in every aspect of the project. You don't have to necessarily be responsible for all the CAD drawings, the AGI, photometric studies, attend all the meetings. But as the lead lighting designer, you are the collaborator with all of the team members throughout the project. Excuse me. and how it works. Step 1, download the handbook. It is an excellent guide to get you through the application process. It's very helpful. It has all of the information that's required for the application. It's an excellent guide to get you through the application process. You need to identify 2 to 4 projects that you feel will demonstrate your competency in each of the domains and meet the criteria. You must submit at least 2 different types of projects. Therefore, they can't all be hospitals or schools or retail. They must have some diversity within your project type, and they must have been completed within the last 7 years. Domain responses are supported by exhibits. An exhibit is evidence to support your response, and it can be a detail, a photo, a drawing, but make sure that the exhibits submitted support the written responses. There's a letter of attestation that's a PDF form that we will show you in a few slides that's required for your client to sign, attesting that you were the lead lighting designer on the project. Okay, the acceptable project types are quite a wide variety of types that you see on the list here. Most of any project type that an architectural lighting designer works on. However, they must be permanent installations and they must have been completed within the last 7 years. Although, for 2 of the domains that we will get to in a few minutes, domain number 3, ingenuity, and domain number 5, science, the projects do not need to be completed. They could be in process, can be in process, or never have been built. Or I would even offer that perhaps you, especially for ingenuity, if you came up with a concept or idea that the client maybe didn't accept, you could submit that for one of your domains. So the 7 domains of practice are: number 1, goals and outcomes. Number 2, collaboration. 3, ingenuity. 4, synthesis. 5, science. 6, stewardship. And 7, we save the best for last, human experience. The 7 domains define the core competency for lighting design professionals worldwide and provide a standard for measuring the performance of CLD candidates. A quick story about how the 7 domains of practice were established. When we met as a task force in Chicago, the seven of us, we were asked by our expert credential consultant, Judy Hale, who credentials other professionals like insurance people and even firemen. But she asked us one day, what do you guys do? Please tell me the role of a lighting designer. I've helped certified many professionals, but I really don't know what a lighting designer does. So we spent a day making lists of our tasks, what our disciplines include, and we went around the room. We offered multiple ideas and, like I said, tasks of what we do. And we then distilled down all those ideas to 7 universal standards for the practice of lighting design. Okay, so that's how we arrived at the 7 domains of practice. So the first domain, goals and outcomes, is the creation of the lighting concept that satisfies the project requirements and the design intent so that the solution performs as predicted. This happens to be my project. On the left is a wine room, and this project was a 9,000 square foot renovated residence that took 7 years to complete. So early on, the wine room was listed on the plans as wine room. There weren't elevations developed, there weren't finishes conceived yet, So the goals changed throughout the project as the design developed. So you need to demonstrate the results of the lighting concept that meet the objectives of the brief and satisfy the client objectives. There could be all kinds of constraints or things that get in the way of your goals, but it's just a matter of explaining those and then how they relate to the outcome. So in domain 1, you can use up to 3 exhibits to support your responses and design intent that could include photographs like this, concept presentations, renderings, final documents. This must be a completed project. In domain 2, it's collaboration, and this is something that we naturally do with other design professionals. It's the interaction with other disciplines by serving as an integral member of the team so that the lighting relates to its context and adds value to the project. We're always interacting, we're always exchanging and discussing ideas with project team members so that everyone understands the feasibility and the implications of the suggestions being considered. As a true collaborator, you're an integral member of the team. You're actively participating with others in the project. You're expressing lighting concepts to be considered, and you're developing the concepts throughout the project. Through collaboration, your contribution and interaction helps the team satisfy the project requirements to accomplish the overall design intent and make your contribution beneficial to the outcome. There are no exhibits required for this domain. However, you will need the letter of attestation required for this domain, which is the signed form letter PDF that comes that you present to a team collaborator. They sign, they attest that you were the lead lighting designer on the project, that you demonstrated competency, and that's what you include in your exhibit and your submission for domain 2. I am going to hand off domain 3 to Dawn.
Thank you, Rose, and good afternoon, everybody, or evening, wherever you are, and thanks again for coming. I just wanted to talk a little bit about ingenuity, and one of the things that this sounds like, oh my gosh, I have to think of something ingenious. Well, you don't necessarily. It might be a small move that you have to make because of some difficult challenge that you've been given on the project. In this particular case, I just wanted to point out this is just one room in a whole project, but it and it was a very sort of a small move that we were able to light the ceiling mural, which obviously the architect did not want any penetrations into. And from one location, we were able to light the ceiling, light the wall, and light the floor, and also meet the emergency criteria without any additional fixtures. So this single fixture that you see here that is on each side of the room, this is the only fixture in the room other than the table lamps. This is a study hall at a university. So this was the entire domain that I used for the entire part of the project. I didn't use the whole project, but part of the project that I used for this domain. And so you can see it doesn't have to be in the entire project. You're not writing a thesis. You're just saying what demonstrated something that was unique about the project or that was especially creative. So the domain of synthesis is a little bit different. And that one is really, we're looking for the idea of how did you combine the elements and detail them in such a way that the components of the strategy work in harmony with the other elements of the space, that the lighting is seamless with the architecture or the environment. It can also be technical elements that may include the source of light, optical control, distribution of light, luminaires, management of natural light, anything like that. That could be how did you synthesize the lighting into that environment? It could be also aesthetic elements and domain evidence of this could be certainly sketches. Dialogue with the architects, notes, mock-up of photos, detailed drawings, simulations, and or finished photos. But this domain does have to be one of those two that must be completed. We can't evaluate how light was synthesized into the environment unless it's a completed project, the same way that you cannot attest to outcomes unless you actually build the project. So this is the second that has to be a completed project. Domain 5 is science, and this one is something that we deal with pretty much all the time and every day, but it doesn't have to be just photometric reports. It could be a control system. It could be a natural, it could be some sort of daylighting system. It could be something else that you did on the project and that was integrated, and so that does not, but it's a pretty evident as to what the science and the technical requirements are from a lighting perspective. So it's just showing that yes, you can evaluate the science, you can use the science to tell the story. But one question we often get asked is, do I have to be the one who perform the calculations? And you could be the one, but it isn't required. As a lead designer, we certainly understand that you probably have a team of people. You have maybe other assistants or somebody that you work with that maybe you've performed the calculations. But certainly as a lead designer, you would understand how to read them, interpret them, verify them, and present them to the client. So this is why, but science is certainly an important part of lighting. So domain 6 is stewardship. And this is also, we get questions about this one as well, but the purpose of this is obviously about acting as a protector of the resources and the environment, making encouraging decisions that consider the effect on living things, not only now, but also in the future. We do care about the environmental impact and how lighting solution of the affects and influences our natural resources, the planet, wildlife, and so this is why stewardship is an important part of lighting design. Now, possible evidence might be, it could be a letter from your client. It could be articles in the press. It could be references in some sort of a press or award that discusses the environmental impact. It could be as photos of commissioned installation, documentation of how you address the environmental challenges, and evidence, and some sort of evidence that you exceeded energy requirements. But it does not have to necessarily be an energy report, okay? Some of that can be kind of dry, and it becomes, you know, a little difficult to read. But if that's what the evidence you have, then, you know, certainly you can do that. But more importantly, I think in the stewardship, you want to tell your story, tell the story of your environmental care. And our final domain is human experience, which is why we do this. This is why I think all of us enjoy the moment when somebody comes into the space we've designed and you see it and it's all unfolds before you and you kind of go, oh, this is beautiful. I love this, and people respond to it. So we are looking for evidence of the human experience and how your solutions positively impacted people who used the space and who are dependent on the space and how it met the aspirations. So one of the things that is helpful here is to use exhibits that are maybe press releases that talk about the space and how the entire space, and we assume that lighting is part of that experience, and how that impacts people and how people felt when they came into the space. They may not specifically mention the lighting. In fact, they probably shouldn't, because then it probably isn't well synthesized. But it could be post-occupancy analysis. It could be letters from the client. It could be press articles. It could be, again, photographs. But if you are using photographs, it's helpful if you have people in the picture. Now, one of the things we want to emphasize too is that all of the photos that you use do not have to be professionally photographed. Even the ones for the domains that have to have a built project, they do not have to be professional photographs. You can take them on any camera, your phone, whatever. They just have to be, documents of what's happening here. So if you have a chance to go back to the site when people have occupied it, that would be a good time to take some photographs with people in it. And so that would be a nice way to fill out domain 7. So I'm going to pass it back to Rose, who's going to talk about starting the application.
Great, thank you, Dawn. Before you begin your application, my best advice to you would be to download the CLD Candidate Handbook and read it. You can be green and read from the screen, or you can be old school like me and print it out. Because the handbook clearly outlines all requirements and includes detailed explanations of the domains as well as the application questions. The handbook can be downloaded from cld.global, which is the website. It's available in English, Spanish, and French. However, the CLD application must be completed in English. You have up to 6 months to complete your application. So pick a deadline for yourself. Although I say take your time, which is important to be thorough and go through this carefully, but provide yourself a deadline. So getting organized. I organized, excuse me, my submission very similar to how I organize a new project. I'm a folder person, so I put all of my project information in folders. I selected my projects, but first I created 7 folders, one for each domain. Early on, I obtained the letters of attestation from clients. I sent them out, one for each project, and they were returned to me, which was very nice to get back. Actually, I had a landscape architect follow up months later and said, "Did you ever get that credential for that form I sent you?" And I was pleased to report that I had. Prepare your documents, whether you put them in folders or a spreadsheet, however you're comfortable with whatever format you work in. Use that, because don't reinvent any wheel or any process that you're not comfortable with. When you're organizing your exhibits for your submission, make sure that all of your documents are free of any markings that identify your firm name. So this is an anonymous submission. We don't want to know any of the information, on the plans of who the design team was. And also, I would recommend to prepare your written responses in Microsoft Word. This helps you organize, first of all, your response. It gives you word count up to 300 words maximum for each response, so it helps you determine how many words you're using. Your exhibits must be in PDF or JPEG format that are no larger than 5 megabytes. There's a video option that you can upload as well. But again, take your time, but give yourself a deadline. The attestation is the PDF form that's available online. You can download it, and you fill it out as the lead designer. And you need to have your client or your team collaborator sign it. So it could be an architect, an interior designer, a landscape architect, a builder, a general contractor, someone that will attest that you were the lead lighting designer on the project. And you will need one form for each project submitted. And Dawn will now take us online to review the application so that you can see what it looks like and what to expect.
Thank you, Rose. So you cannot, you don't go to the ILD website to find this. This is actually a separate website, and it's cld.global. So I've taken you here to, this is where you would start. And there's all sorts of information here about the requirements. Everything that we've shared with you today is all on here, and you can recap this because I'm sure you're not going to remember everything we said. So if I'm going to go here, I would how to apply. I would go here, and it gives me some checklists of things to do, some tips for applying. Here's the link to the candidate handbook. Here's the candidate handbook supplement. And so there's a lot of information here that will, again, answer questions that you may have forgotten after you get off this webinar. So I would click the apply here. You can see that changes colors, and that would allow me to apply here. And I'm actually going to go here because I've already set this up with a test. This would take me to this screen that apply here. If you've signing on for the first time, you're going to go here on the left side, and you're going to register as an applicant. You might get a lot of your evidence together before you register because, as Rosemarie said, we have this 6-month deadline, which is really helpful, but you want to give yourself your own deadline. But you can register here. You'll have to verify your email and all of that. So I'm not going to go there. I just wanted to point that out. I am going to go here to a test application that we have put together. And if it wants to, there we go. And so once you get your credentials and you sign in with your username and password, it will take you here, and then you re-log in, it will take you here to your application. So you're gonna upload information about each project. So there's potentially 4 projects, as it shows here, that project 1 and 2, or A and B, are required. So we're gonna define the project. Let's just click on here. We're going to define the project here first. We're going to provide the attestation letter. We're going to upload that. Okay, and so what I might be able to do is go into some documents on my, here's my submission, and here's my 4 projects. This is the way that I organized my folders, the way that Rose had also organized her folders. Here's the blank attestation letter, but if I go into one of these, for example, here is the attestation letter from the architect that was signed. So I would just click and upload that there. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to go back here. And so I would do that for each project. I would then also define the project timeline. When did I start the work? When did I finish the work? Okay, and I would list those dates. So I'm gonna go back to that. I would click finish, and then again I'm gonna insert a little information about the project, what kind of project is. There's a pull down menu here that I can say I can choose from these different type of projects, or if it's something that's not in the pull down menu, I can fill that out here. So so you just go through each project and you upload the information about the projects. Once we get the projects in, then we're ready to start talking about which project am I going to use for goals and outcomes. Now that might be something you want to think through as you're choosing your projects. What is one of my best projects that I could talk about goals and outcomes? Outline what projects you're going to use with different domains. So I'm going to choose one project to talk about in domain 1 to answer, I believe there's 2 questions. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to provide information. and I'm going to click on this, and yes, there's 2 questions in domain 1. So it's explain the design concept, and what we've done here is we've filled in some text so you can see. And as Rosemarie mentioned, you might want to write this out in Word first, or some document process Word program, because there is a 300-word response. It will allow you to spell check and do some things like that. And then it gives you time to massage your text and make sure that it's what you want, and then you can just cut and paste it into the answer here. So we would do that for both, and you can see these are collapsible windows. They're dynamic windows that allow you to read all your text. So here, I would then scroll down and say, what am I going to do for my exhibit 1? And so I might be able to upload my exhibit here. And I'm going to go to an exhibit into, let's go back to my submission here, and we can say, all right, I don't remember actually which one I used for one, but I did an evidence deck, and I did all of my evidence in an InDesign document. You can do it in PowerPoint, you can do it in anything you want. Ultimately, I had PDFs for all of my evidence. So actually here is the goals and outcomes that I use for my submission in domain 1. So I would do the same thing from 2, from my exhibit 2, and there's my page 2. And this was just a way that I knew what domain. I reminded myself what the domain was, and page 1 and page 2 made it easy for me to say that's exhibit 1 and exhibit 2. If I had a video or something that was a remote, not like a YouTube video or something that I needed to use as evidence, then I could type in the URL, or I could copy and paste the URL here. I have a chance to write in a description in either one of these. And then if I needed a third exhibit, I could do that. It's not mandatory, because I felt like there's 2 questions, so I'm going to provide 2 pages. So I'm going to not submit this, because this isn't a real application anyway, but I'm going to show you what happens when you go ahead and just because you can save this and come back to it later. If you say, hey, you know, I found a better photograph or a better sketch, and so I'm going to go back in here, and you'll see that what's happened in my evidence is now that there are 2, in addition to the delete trash can, there are 2 new icons here. One is the ability to download the file, but the other is the ability to view the file. And so now I can see, so I could change this if I decided I wanted to update my evidence. I could certainly delete this and re-upload it, but I can also view the PDF here, and you can see that this is this was my evidence, and it happens to be the same one that I used for Ingenuity. But so that was, I'm going to close out of that. So that's how you upload, and that's how you answer the questions. And we would go through each domain, and at the end, when you're ready, when you're ready, I would certainly wait to submit everything until you are sure you're ready to pull the trigger, and then at the bottom of the screen, you would submit your application. So that's the whole online process. Very easy, very intuitive, available 24 hours a day, every day, and you can come back to it. You can save your work. You can come back to it and do it that way if you prefer. So that's just sort of the way to stay organized, a way to kind of decide what you're going to use. And again, you can change your mind until you finally submit. So with that, I'm going to send it back to Joe and to Rosemarie, and we're going to talk about the assessment.
Excellent, Dawn. Thank you very much. It's very helpful to see the online application. When you are responding to the domain questions, you really want to consider the what, the how, and the why. What was the problem? How did you resolve it? Why do you think it works? I would also recommend you use the question in the response. For example, if the question is explain how your project design added value to the project, then your response begins with, the project lighting design added value to the project by enhancing the architecture. However that occurred, it's always best to formulate your response with that question in mind. Why perhaps an applicant could fail? Well, fortunately, there's very few that do, so that's the good news for everyone. I know people are always concerned about that and frequently ask how many people have failed, but very few have. And typically, why is because they haven't answered the questions directly. The exhibits don't support the answers, and what I would recommend that you do when you are formatting your application, think of it as if you were presenting to your client through an email or in writing. The client is remote, you're not able to speak to them, so you are clearly explaining what you did. The exhibits are there to help support your project solutions. Photographs are great, but again, you need to explain what's happening in the photograph, what your solutions that are proposed. So typically, those that have not passed, it was because the domains and questions were not answered properly. Okay. Recertification occurs every 5 years. It requires 70 continuing lighting units, or we call them CLUs, CLUs, of education and professional development, which is approximately 14 CLUs per year. 1 hour equals 1 CLU. So any AIA approved webinar, event, online course is certainly applicable for a continuing lighting unit as well. A CLD certificate must show continuing education in each of the 7 domains. So when you go online and you are reporting your CLUs, there is an area that you can determine which of the domains that your CLU relates to, and you'll see that online. Okay, and there are plenty of mentors available to assist you in this process. Joe at the CLD staff can arrange for a mentor. Dawn and I are here to help. We're happy to answer any of your questions, or if you want to pass by something to us, we're happy to answer, to help. We're available for email, of course, phone, if you want to even chat about it. Again, you have up to 6 months to complete your application, but there really is no deadline, so that's up to you to create a timeline for yourself like you would for a project. You can complete a domain in a day. You could complete a domain in a week or in a month, but that's up to you to establish your own time frame, establish your deadline, and complete your application. There's really a wonderful sense of accomplishment once you get through this. It is a process, but it's very rewarding. So the question I have for the audience is, who's next to certified? We currently have 75 certified lighting designers, and 75 is not critical mass, but 750 is. We need to grow the CLD, and we need you. Dawn and I say, get your number. I'm number 15, Dawn is number 37. We have a jersey campaign. We're wearing our jerseys proudly with our numbers on it. Lighting designers are very competitive, so create incentive among your offices, in our industry, who will be the first 100 CLDs in architectural lighting design history. Get your jersey, get your number, and join us. We would love to grow the CLD. We're really grateful that you joined us today, and we hope you consider your application as soon as you can get to it. So thank you.
Thank you, Dawn and Rosemarie. We do have some questions. I'll field the first one to give you guys a little bit of a break from talking. How different is the application / candidate eligibility from year to year? For example, if you start the application end of 2020 but submit 2021, is that acceptable? The answer is yes. You do. From the time that you sign up for an application, the link that Dawn showed you, you have 6 months to complete your application. So if you want to work on it before you hit that I want to start my application button, by all means, go ahead and do that. But once you do start the process online, you will have 6 months. And the only way to get the questions to answer is the start of the 6-month clock. That is incorrect. You have access to the questions right now if you download the CLD candidate handbook. All of those questions are in there. If you download the candidate supplement handbook, it also has the questions in there and even more tips directly from people who have completed their CLDs, the reviewers, tips on how to answer those questions as directly as possible and efficiently as possible to make it easier on the reviewers. That way you're not kind of dancing around all your words, you're getting straight to the point. Okay.
Joe, Joe, let me add to that.
Sure.
I actually did that. I actually did all of my work online. I set a deadline for myself for the end of when I did it 2017. I set a deadline at the end of the year, and I did everything offline. I typed in the questions, I typed in my answers, I did everything. I put my exhibits together, and then I signed up and I just uploaded it all. So that might be a great way to approach it and to allow yourself the time that you need, rather than starting your clock and then making it fit into the 6-month time window, because things do happen in people's lives. And
yep, Dawn, that's a great idea. Great way to approach it. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. The next couple kind of refer to each other, so I'm just going to rattle those off. Could just one project be completed? No, you have to submit a minimum of 2, maximum of 4. This way you're showing competency across 2 different projects and not just one. The presentation will be available afterwards to review it. There'll also be a recording on the CLD YouTube channel if you'd like to rewatch and look at some of the things again. And let's go on to the next question here. I'm the head designer of my company. I want to know if our senior lighting designer can also apply to the CLD. It cut off, so give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. The question cut off here. Oh, that's interesting.
I'm wondering if the question is about using the same projects.
Oh yeah, here, I'm a head designer of my company. I want to know if our senior lighting designer can also apply to the CLD, based that she may also worked with me on the same project. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I could kind of tell that's where it was going.
So that's a yes,
yes.
And a yes. Yes.
Yes, yes and a yes.
We've all confirmed that's a yes.
Yeah, well, for one thing, you would not have the same reviewers. More than
and you
likely.
would have different answers, perhaps. You'd have different responses.
Exactly.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This one I cannot field because I'm not 100% familiar with this part of the thing. Do IES IDA submissions work for parts of the submission, since we have already documented the project in this way?
That's a great question. And yes. Let me jump in and say that yes, part of what you are filling out for an award submission, which is the IIDA, yes, you could use some of the same evidence, but in that typically you're going to only have finished photographs, right? So you could use the same projects. You might want some of the same answers or some of the same things. But if you'll notice, in some of the exhibits are available to you are renderings. They're photometric printouts, or they're photometric evidence. You would probably not use that in an award submission. So remember, this is not an award submission. It is evidence of the process that you go through when you're designing a project. So we're not looking just for the finished wow moment. We're looking for the evidence that you worked on this project and you know how a lighting design process works. So some of that evidence could be useful, but you're probably going to want to get more robust details.
And I would just offer that the questions to satisfy the domains are rather specific. So you can certainly use the same projects and probably much of its content, but you really need to study those questions in the domain to make sure that you satisfy those.
Right, yeah, like Dawn and Rosemarie said, this is not an award submission, so you will have to be a little more specific based on the questions that are asked in each domain, besides just kind of presenting it as a whole.
Right,
There are very,
exactly.
the questions are, you know, not vague, but they're but not super specific. But you know, you do need some detail, and you do need to answer the questions directly. Okay, I got a couple more. Should you use just one project in a domain for all questions, or can you answer part one of a project with another, and then part two with another project?
Another great
Like
question.
if there's two questions, like if there's two questions,
Yeah.
can you answer them? You know, I want to do my project A with the first question and project B or two, I forgot what I said, for the second question. I think they're basically asking, can I mix up in the domains different projects to field the answers or field the responses? My apologies.
Well, there's nothing specifically that says you cannot do that. It's just from a continuity standpoint, it's just a little bit easier and on the reviewer if you use one project per domain.
Yeah, it's not recommended to mix those. You really should have, you know, consistency and continuity through the domain. It's helpful that way to use one project for each domain.
Right. I agree. I see all the
for each question. Sorry, to be specific for each question in the domain. Thanks.
Right.
That's what
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I once a application is submitted, I go through them and I go through the exhibits to make sure there's no watermarks or any company or your name is on it, which is another thing. If you're any of your exhibits, please remove any watermarks, company names, your name. If you're submitting an article that names you directly but still talks about the lighting, please block that out. It's a double-blind review, so the reviewers don't know who you are, and the group of 3 reviewers that are reviewing it don't know who each other are, and they're not allowed to discuss it with each other. So, you know, just some tips on that. But yes, exactly. Just if you keep it to one project per domain, it makes it a lot easier on the reviewers, and they're not trying to figure out exactly what you're talking about. Okay, 2 more questions here before we wrap up. Why did the both of you get your CLD when you've been in this industry for so long, you own your own businesses, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, Rosemarie here speaking. As I mentioned earlier, I was part of the task force for 5 years and appointed the vice chair of the CLD commissioning board. So I felt compelled to do it. I felt not only obligation and of course my Catholic guilt, but I felt that number one, I wanted to. I think it's outstanding for our industry to be a part of this and to raise awareness in our industry. And I was challenged by it. You know, as much as I was involved, it still was a process for me to get through because certainly needed to perfect, my submission to make sure that I passed, and it was quite an effort. But I also tell the story of that, most of our competitors are not other lighting designers, because a lot of lighting design gets done by other design professionals, as we all know, architects, interior designers, engineers, and electricians. So, I felt that having the credential when I submit for a project to have certified lighting designer on my resume was even more, it's that credential that's satisfying, and that will hopefully secure you in getting projects, and having your clients be confident in your abilities.
Well, I would echo that, but I would also add, for me, I wasn't compelled to do it, and somebody might ask, why do you feel like you needed to do it? And first of all, it was a personal challenge, but secondly, I totally support this, because I feel like it's important to support our industry, to give us a seat at the table, and to do that, it commands the certification in order to tell other professionals that, hey, I'm a professional too. And so I got a lot out of it in doing it. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to write about what I was thinking, how to present my ideas. It always helps you practice those kind of things. But I'm in a very robust market. There's a lot of people here that are, it's a big market, and there's a lot of people that are lighting designers here. And I felt like it was something that would allow me to differentiate myself from a lot of other people in my market. So even though I'm encouraging them to do it, I still feel that it is, it's globally recognized from that standpoint. It's something that I think separates our profession from a lot of others, and I'm super proud about it. I will say that I was nervous when I hit the submit my application button. I was nervous. I think we're all nervous about doing that, because we know what we're submitting to someone judging our work, but it's really no different than submitting for an awards competition as well. And so you have to say, well, what if they don't agree with me, or what if they're judging me and they don't agree with the solution? Well, they're not there to judge your solution. The reviewers are not here to judge your solution. The reviewers are here to say, yes, this is a person that understands the lighting design process. This is a person that is competent. And it's not for them to say whether the solution was the right solution or not. They weren't in the meetings that you were in to design that project. So for me, it was scary, but then when I got it, I was truly exhilarated, and it's something I have to say is from my long career. I'm enormously proud of this. I'm enormously proud that I've done this. So there's a great deal of self-satisfaction.
There is. Cheers, bravo, Dawn. I want to clap for you. Yay.
Virtual high five.
Thank you.
I do have two more questions. They kind of go hand in hand, so without reading them, I'll answer them. Once you submit your application, I kind of go read over it and see if there's anything that you need to fix, and whether it's an exhibit or something didn't upload, or it seems like there's something missing. The reviewers have 6 weeks to complete their review. If you pass all domains, whether that's 5 if you are a professional level member of the approved associations, or that's all 7, in order to pass the certification, you have to pass all the domains. If you fail 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, you do have one more opportunity to complete, to re-edit, or I'm sorry, not re-edit, but edit your responses. You have 4 months to do that. And when that happens, I email you back and I give you the feedback from the reviewers to help you fill in the gaps that they feel that you were missing in your responses. So if you weren't detailed enough, one of the feedback from the reviewers, like please be more detailed about the design of this fixture or something along those lines. But you're not left alone in the dark about why your responses didn't necessarily pass. We do give you the feedback in case that does happen and you need to revise some of your responses. And then after you revise the responses, I send you that. You have 4 months to complete those edits, however many or little they are. I've had people respond the same day saying, here are my edits done. And I've had people take as much time as they needed because of projects, time management, et cetera. And then after that, the reviewers have another 6 weeks after that. But because they might only be reviewing 1 domain or 2 or 3, it won't take them as long. So it usually doesn't take that long, but they do have that much time to do it. So that's all for the questions. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. This presentation will be distributed out. You'll also be able to rewatch it if you'd like, be up on our CLD YouTube channel, probably next Monday or Tuesday. But I'd like to thank Dawn and Rosemarie for taking their time today to fill in this great content for our attendees. And I think it was very helpful, especially taking a look live at what the application looks like. You're not blind, and the attendees aren't blind, and applicants aren't blind anymore when they go in and are wondering what it looks like. Now they know exactly what to do and what to go for.
That's right.
So I thank you attendees for joining in and listening in. Dawn, Rosemarie, do you have any final words?
Thank you,
Joe. Thank you, Don. Thank you everyone for your interest in the CLD. We hope you are interested in filling up your application soon. Get your CLD number, be the first 100 in architectural lighting design history. Good luck, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy.
And I just want to say thanks again, everybody, and be well. And I wish everyone will thrive in this time. And so be safe and be well.
All right. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.